Welcome back to Tiempo. The Big Brothers and Big Sisters organization brings together mentors and children. The adult volunteers help their little brothers and sisters in many, many ways, from helping with homework to taking them on outings. Right now, believe it or not, there's a shortage of mentors, especially Latino volunteers in New York City. And joining us now to talk more about it is the group's executive director, Hector Batista, and a big brother, longtime volunteer, Rodney Mendez. We'll talk to Rodney in just a second. Big Brothers, Big Sisters, been around a long time, hasn't it? Wow. More than 100 years?
More than 100 years,
wow,
that's right.
That's great. But do you normally see these peaks and valleys in an organization that's been around for that long, where things are great for a while, then they're not so good, you know, up and down?
Yeah, you do. But I think that as you get new immigrants coming into this country, you start seeing some of those peaks and valleys where we have some challenges in terms of recruiting bigs from those communities. Because
the demand is greater?
The demand is absolutely greater. In New York City, there's about 635,000 families living below the poverty rate. Those families have about 300,000 young people that the age is from 7 to 18 years old, which is the group that we're trying to target.
Yes.
So there's a great demand, and we service about 3,000 matches a year. So you can
really?
See, yeah.
Wow. And again, it's from, you can be, how young can you be to be a little brother or a little sister? 7?
7 years old.
All the way until what age?
To like 17, almost 18 years old.
Okay.
That's when you age out.
In fact, Rodney, you've been a mentor for how many years now?
5 years.
5 years,
yes.
And you've been mentoring the same little brother, right?
Yes,
exactly. For how many years now?
Well, since he was 12 years old.
Since he was 12.
He's about to turn 17 now. Yeah. So I saw a lot of changes in from ending grammar school to high school.
Talk to me about some of the things you guys have done together over the past 4 or 5 years and the relationship that you've grown into.
Well, one of the most amazing things I find in mentoring is just about everything you do is like a first. We took him to the first Yankee game. It was one of the first things that we did. And for Christmas, our first Christmas together, I took him to Rockefeller Center. He'd never been to Rockefeller Center. He's 12 years old from New York City.
Never seen the tree.
Yeah. And the list just goes on and on. Barbecue, going to the aquarium, movies, and just walking, going to a restaurant and just talking. And it's almost just like another ear to listen to.
Let me ask you a two-part question. What do you think your relationship brings to this?
My relationship brings...
What does your half bring?
Experience, as in, I know, I've being someone who's born and raised in New York City, I know the challenges that it could be for a kid to grow up in the city. So it's what I'd like to have known when I was his age.
Yeah.
And what would have helped me.
So what do you get out of it? Because a lot of mentors I talk to have said, you know what, I get as much of a blessing as I think they do. Absolutely.
I sometimes think, and I still today, it's possible that I might have gotten a lot more out of the relationship that he did.
Yeah.
What if it's just being able to know that I'm helping someone out?
And that's not uncommon, right, Hector? Where mentors will come in to say, you know, I got into this not knowing what it was going to be like, and I'm finding more about myself than I am about my little brother or little sister.
Yeah, absolutely. We hear stories after stories. What a rewarding experience it is for the mentors to have that, to be involved in such a relationship.
The reason we had you here, and in part, is because obviously it's a great organization, but it is a downtime. To what do you attribute the low of Latino volunteers right now?
Well, I think that there's a misconception out there that in order for you to be a big brother, you have to be a doctor or a lawyer. I mean, we have some fantastic mentors that are in the service industry, the construction industries, that work for the city government, firefighters, police people. So the reality is that all these young people need is a positive role model, someone who's going to be dependable, someone who's going to be there for them. Like Rodney stated, I think a lot of these young people come from single-family households, and they don't have that person who could, they could rely on and kind of show them some of the things, some of the challenges. It's hard growing up in this city, and it's hard being a new immigrant in this city and have to deal with the language issues and then deal with growing up in this city. And I think that having that person who could tell them, look, this is what you can expect, and sort of help them through that adolescence phase.
And other than the language, what is so critical about having the same ethnicity in a volunteer?
Well, I won't say critical. I think what I would say helpful is having someone that they could relate to, that looks like them, kind of enjoys the same kind of foods that they do, and really could understand what that journey is, you know, of being a Latino in this country, a wonderful country, United States, and just sort of helping them through that process, I think, is very, very helpful. And we try to make the connection as so close together because we find that gives us a lot more success.
We're up against our first commercial break, but before we go, what are the requirements for a mentor?
You have to be 21 years old.
Okay.
But you have to be willing to be a volunteer. You have to dedicate 8 hours a month to be a volunteer for 1 year, and that's all the requirements. And you're going to go through a thorough background check. We have one of the most thorough background checks in the country. You're going to be asked some questions, your background. We don't want any young people being involved with someone who hasn't had a background check. And then you're not going to just be thrown into the process. You're going to be given
You'll be educated.
You'll be educated.
All right. Sit tight. When we come back on Tiempo, more on Big Brothers and Big Sisters in New York City when we come back.